Hace algunas semanas recibimos una llamada desde Nueva York, donde Mark Leone nos invitaba, nos convocaba a una reunión donde supuestamente Stan Romanek, un contactado, entraría en trance y nos haría revelaciones de un ser inteligente dimensional extraterrestre. Por tanto, acudimos y hoy vamos a presentar un programa especial en torno a ese evento. Sin embargo, vamos a ver primero quién es Stan Romanek, por qué este caso de contacto es tan importante y cuáles son las evidencias que ha presentado para considerarlo así. Vamos entonces a la primera parte en la investigación del caso de Stan Romanek.
Stan Romanek, un caso asombroso. ¿Es la historia más importante y documentada de un contacto extraterrestre o es el mejor montaje de un grupo de fanáticos de este fenómeno? Para conocer este caso a fondo, Tercer Milenio se trasladó hasta Loveland, Colorado, en los Estados Unidos, para conocer al protagonista, para conocer a Stan Romanek.
Many things have happened to you here in Loveland.
Oh yeah, it happens to me everywhere. Our house really has all kinds of paranormal activity. You'll see flashes of light. Sometimes furniture will move on its own. The water turns on by itself. You can watch the handle go on. There'll be, like the shower sometimes goes on. All kinds of crazy stuff.
En el trayecto nos prometió evidencias de estos hechos. Llegamos entonces a su casa, conocimos a su familia y empezamos a recorrer cada habitación.
A shimmer, like if you're looking at a road and it's real hot outside, you see the shimmer coming off the road. It was just like that, and the cats were hissing at it, and I got my camera, took a picture, and whatever it was seemed to absorb the light, the flash of the light. You can see a dark mass up there. Well, it happened again. I was in my office and I heard this weird, almost like a mechanical hum of something. And I looked and one of the TV remotes was hovering right over here.
En la parte posterior de su casa nos contó sobre eventos muy inusuales, realmente sorprendentes.
There was a whole bunch of people standing right there, and we took a picture, and then in the background you could see the little guy standing.
Stan Romanek nos presentó sus evidencias. Estas las guarda en una oficina a la que llama The Romanek Files. Ahí pudimos observar archivo tras archivo, fotografía tras fotografía, video tras video, evidencias realmente extraordinarias de un caso que resulta difícil de creer, pero que, sin embargo, está perfectamente documentado, como ninguno antes en toda la historia. Pero la investigación de Tercer Milenio no concluyó en este lugar. Acompañamos a Romanek a los lugares más significativos, como el sitio donde ocurrió el primer avistamiento, muy cerca de la ciudad de Denver, o también el sorprendente objeto que lo siguió hasta su casa. Por eso hemos venido hasta acá, a conocer al ser humano detrás de la historia, a conocer esa historia que es excepcional y que seguramente impactará a muchos de aquellos que la puedan seguir a través de Tercer Milenio. Ahora vamos a conocer algunos de los lugares donde Stan Romanek tuvo sus primeros encuentros. Una historia que se va desarrollando y lentamente adquiere proporciones verdaderamente históricas. A lo largo de los últimos 10 años, Romanek ha vivido situaciones extraordinarias, pero todo empezó aquí, precisamente muy cerca de la ciudad de Denver, en sus alrededores, en un lugar donde las personas aseguran ver constantemente a estos objetos voladores no identificados. Aquí fue donde ocurrió precisamente, allá por diciembre del año 2000, en los últimos días del año 2000, cuando Stan Romanek tuvo su primer encuentro con lo desconocido. This is the place where you had your first experience.
Yes, right here. There used to be power lines that ran along the south side of this road right here. And I just turned that corner and saw the UFO just right about at that corner.
Stan siguió al objeto, entonces bajó de su auto y empezó a grabar frente a un gran número de testigos.
It was round on top and it had 6 smaller spheres on the bottom and they were rotating counterclockwise. And in between the spheres was the blackest black I'd ever seen in my life. and it looked like you were looking into infinity. That's the only way I can describe it. And then eventually this object changed shape, changed colors, and disappeared. And we all watched it do it.
Su primer video, su primer contacto, un objeto de características metálicas que además nos dijo generó estática.
Finally, you had to believe in UFOs.
No. It took me a while, even after that, to believe in UFOs.
Who were we? Once we were called the spirit of the mountain, father sun, mother moon, ancestral spirits, animal spirits, jinn, ghosts, the green man, then gods, demons, angels, poltergeists, aliens, extraterrestrials, leptons, quarks. The words change. We do not change.
El caso de los llamados contactados adquiere relevancia y trascendencia en cuanto a la cantidad y calidad de las evidencias que presenten y que sustenten su caso. Aquí le presento algunas de las extraordinarias evidencias que respaldan el caso de Stan Romanek.
Después de someterse a una regresión hipnótica, Stan supo que había sido abducido, secuestrado y que su vida no sería la misma.
A thought popped in my head. This thought was, you're going to be okay. It's okay. You're going to be fine. I didn't put that thought in my head. I wasn't going to be fine. I was really upset. And as they led me out to the balcony of this apartment, I somehow snapped out of whatever trance I was in, and I grabbed one of the males, and I was going to throw him off the balcony, and I felt a tap on the back of my head, and I woke up somewhere else. And I had these open wounds on my back, and when I looked down, all the hair was rubbed off my wrists, and I had open wounds on my wrists. And I lost it. I thought I was going crazy.
En las diferentes ocasiones que Stan identifica haber sido secuestrado por seres de otros mundos, a veces aparece sin ropa, a veces con ropa de otras personas, a veces aparece con marcas en su cuerpo. Es verdaderamente un enigma, incluso para el mismo Romanek.
He had a fractured rib that we couldn't understand what happened to him. He learned later what happened. He was urinating blood, had a bloody nose. So, it was obvious something had happened. And he had a lump in his hip, which we hadn't noticed before that. So we took pictures of all those things. The lump in the hip ended up being an implant that was, taken out, a year and a half later. It had surfaced and was removed. The fractured rib happened while, during the abduction. They didn't mean to hurt him, obviously, but he was scared. He was trying to get away, and so it happened accidentally, and they did try to fix it so that he could breathe, and I don't know. It's just a lot of terrifying things happened.
They took me against my will. My first experience was almost polite, though. It wasn't. And I've had other experiences that were absolutely terrifying.
Una mañana despertó con 5 marcas en su pierna, en la misma que ese día operarían para que Stan no quedara con una lesión permanente.
And I said, Stan, do you notice anything different? He's like, what? I said, where's your leg brace? Because he had been wearing this leg brace that went from his hip down to his calf. And it had the little ratchet things on it so you keep it at a certain place. It was gone, and he was walking without a limp. The swelling in his knee and his leg were gone, and he had 5 holes in the back of in the side of his leg. And he's like, what the heck? He was just walking normally. There was no pain, no nothing. So that was cool.
And I called my doctor, and she was really upset. She goes, look, I understand you're afraid of surgery, but if you don't get your leg fixed, you're going to be a cripple the rest of your life. And I said, I can't explain, I'm just going to have to show you. And he was dumbfounded, he was amazed.
Admitting to the difficulty of researching the abduction phenomena, Jacobs, however, rules out the idea that abductions are just a psychological or imaginary issue. Too many accounts from too many unrelated people tell the same developing stories over and over, which just don't fit into any psychological frame. So how does a typical abduction look like? Jacobs describes it in a nutshell. Abductions are a complex series of events and procedures directed by the abductors to passive or controlled abductees. In a typical or common abduction, humans are taken out of their normal environment by aliens. The people are rendered passive and cannot resist. They are taken aboard a UFO, their clothes are removed, and they are made to lie on a table. A series of physical, mental, and productive procedures are then administered to the subjects. People's physical bodies are probed and examined, sperm is taken, eggs are harvested. The aliens perform staring procedures during which they gaze into abductees' eyes at a distance of only an inch or two. These mind scan procedures appear to be neurological manipulations which give the aliens the ability to enter into people's minds. After the table procedures, abductees report that they are sometimes taken into other rooms where they are required to have skin-on-skin contact with unusual-looking babies. Abductees say that these babies seem to be crosses between humans and aliens. They call them hybrids. Abductees also see hybrid toddlers, older youth, adolescents, and adults. Sometimes abductees report that they are required to perform tasks, that they are tested in some way. They say that machines are brought in to examine them. They sometimes are required to have a form of sexual intercourse with other humans and sometimes with adolescent and adult hybrids. They are returned to their normal environment and within seconds they forget what just happened to them. Here is a list she put together based on countless abduction accounts, research, and analysis. Aliens can alter our perception of our surroundings. Aliens can control what we think we see. They can appear to us in any number of guises and shapes. Aliens can take us, our consciousness, out of our physical bodies, disable our control of our bodies, install one of their own entities, and use our bodies as vehicles for their own activities before returning our consciousness to our bodies. Aliens can be present with us in an invisible state and can make themselves only partially visible. Abductees receive marks on their bodies other than the well-known scoops and straight-line scars. These other marks include single punctures, multiple punctures, large bruises, 3- and 4-fingered claw marks, and triangles of every possible sort. Female abductees often suffer serious gynecological problems after their alien encounters. And sometimes these problems lead to cysts, tumors, cancer of the breasts and uterus, and to hysterectomies. Aliens take body fluids from our necks, spines, blood veins, joints, such as knees and wrists and other places. They also inject unknown fluids into various parts of our bodies. A surprising number of abductees suffer from serious illnesses they didn't have before their encounters. These have led to surgery, debilitation, and even death from causes the doctors can't identify. Some abductees experience a degeneration of their mental, social, and spiritual well-being. Excessive behavior frequently erupts, such as drug abuse, alcoholism, overeating, and promiscuity. Strange obsessions develop and cause the disruption of normal life and the destruction of personal relationships. Aliens show a great interest in adult sexuality, child sexuality, and in inflicting physical pain on abductees. Abductees recall being instructed and trained by aliens. This training may be in the form of verbal or telepathic lessons, slideshows, or actual hands-on instruction in the operation of alien technology. Abductees report being taken to facilities in which they encounter not only aliens, but also normal-looking humans, sometimes in military uniforms, working with the alien captors. Abductees often encounter more than one sort of alien during an experience, not just the greys. Every possible combination of grey, reptoid, insectoid, blonde, and widow's-peak have been seen during single abductions, aboard the same craft or in the same facility. Abductees report being taken to underground facilities where they see grotesque hybrid creatures, nurseries of hybrid humanoid fetuses and vats of colored liquid filled with parts of human bodies. Abductees report seeing other humans in these facilities being drained of blood, being mutilated, flayed, and dismembered, and stacked lifeless like cords of wood. Some abductees have been threatened that they too will end up in this condition if they don't cooperate with their alien captors. Aliens come into homes and temporarily remove young children, leaving their distraught parents paralyzed and helpless. In cases where a parent has been able to protest, the aliens insist that the children belong to us. Aliens have forced human abductees to have sexual intercourse with aliens and even with other abductees, while groups of aliens observe these performances. In such encounters, the aliens have sometimes disguised themselves in order to gain the cooperation of the abductee, appearing in such forms as Jesus, the Pope, certain celebrities, and even the dead spouses of the abductees. Aliens perform extremely painful experiments or procedures on abductees, saying that these acts are necessary but give no explanation why. Painful genital and anal probes are performed on children as well as adults. Aliens make predictions of an imminent period of global chaos and destruction. They say that a certain number of humans will be rescued from the planet in order to continue the species, either on another planet or back on Earth after the destruction is over. Many abductees report they don't believe their alien captors and foresee instead a much more sinister use of the rescued humans.
En el caso de Stan Romanek, sin duda el aspecto que más me impresionó fueron las extraordinarias ecuaciones, donde nos revela incluso cómo viajar hasta el otro extremo de nuestra galaxia, realizar viajes interplanetarios, poder viajar hasta otros planetas. Ecuaciones muy complejas escritas por un hombre que tiene dislexia. Sin duda, uno de los aspectos más sorprendentes de este extraordinario caso.
The problem is I'm severely dyslexic.
Números escritos durante sueños, cifras entre las noches, ecuaciones complejas durante hipnosis regresivas, testigos que corroboran toda esta historia.
Lisa woke me up and said, "Come on, he's writing again." And I knew immediately what she meant, that he was writing an equation. So we stood in the bedroom, watched the equation being written as Stan spoke to somebody. There was nobody in the room.
They were given to him to be given to whoever can figure them out and make them usable.
Some of the equations have ancient languages on the bottom. The researchers knew it was an equation, but they couldn't understand it. And then, one of the researchers was at a mirror and he flipped it over and he realized that I wrote the equation completely backwards. You have to look at it in a mirror to understand it.
Una historia que en cada momento sorprende más. Las evidencias se acumulan tanto que parecería una persecución en contra de Stan Romanek, un hostigamiento a su persona.
Al continuar con la investigación de Stan Romanek, un supuesto contactado, le muestro aquí pues estas extraordinarias imágenes de seres extraterrestres. Muy pocos las han presentado. Vea usted estas muestras polémicas, sin duda alguna, pero sin duda alguna también dejan mucho de qué hablar. Vea usted estas evidencias.
Uno de los hombres que más cerca ha estado del caso de Stan Romanek es el señor Rick Nelson, quien perteneció a la inteligencia militar de los Estados Unidos. Él personalmente ha podido experimentar en un sinnúmero de ocasiones eventos verdaderamente espectaculares. Escuchemos.
I've taken paranormal investigation groups to his home who have done it for many, many years, some of them up to 30 years. They bring their equipment, electromagnetic field readers, certainly a great number of video cameras, tape recorders, the Geiger counters and other equipment, dozens of pieces of equipment. And in every instance, the things we're able to capture, document, is phenomenal. We can have conversations with whatever they are. We're not sure.
So they came and installed surveillance cameras throughout the house, and the stuff we captured are amazing. These balls, fist-sized balls of red light. You know, some of the debunkers and some of the skeptics will say, oh, it's a laser pointer, except for the fact that it's three-dimensional, and you can see that it's three-dimensional and it has a tail usually.
En el exterior de su casa también se presentan extraños fenómenos, incomprensibles para Stan y sus amigos.
One of the days we went outside, everything was fine. 5 minutes later, heard another noise, and all the lawn furniture was missing. We couldn't find it anywhere. And we looked and looked, and finally somebody looked on the roof, and we had all our lawn chairs on the roof.
Chairs on roofs, you know, that would, you know, the chairs that you'd walk outside, the chairs would all be out in the garden, or, you know, outside on the lawn. And the next thing you know, they're up on the roof.
También extrañas sombras al exterior y al interior de su casa, en las escaleras, en el sillón y frente a su gato. Incluso esta imagen del control remoto de Stan Romanek, que parece estar flotando en el aire, salvo por esta sombra que parece sostenerlo.
I think they take things and look at them and experiment and try to figure out what they are, then they return them.
Uno de los más grandes misterios, sin duda, lo constituyen las cámaras de Stan Romanek, que a veces desaparecen súbitamente, para reaparecer después con la imagen de un supuesto ser que habría estado manipulando esta cámara cuando se disparó o dispararía accidentalmente, y el rostro quedó impreso en la imagen. ¿Qué piensa usted? ¿Es esto extraordinario? Poco después la cámara de su hija sería la que desaparecería, pero ahora por algunos días, más de 4 días. Sin embargo, aparecieron imágenes nuevamente, como si estas fueran un mensaje. Imágenes de un extraño ser que parece haber comprendido cómo utilizar la cámara y entonces tratar de tomar su rostro para dejarlo impreso. Verdaderamente extraordinario, si consideramos que este caso podría ser auténtico. Uno de los aspectos más polémicos en el caso de Stan Romanek fue un video que pudo tomar en su casa de Nebraska, en un departamento de un segundo piso. En ese lugar pudo captar la imagen de lo que parecería ser un extraño ser, posiblemente extraterrestre, observando a través de su ventana. La historia nos dice que él pensaba que alguien lo observaba, y ahí puso su cámara, a sugerencia de un amigo. La cámara captó estas imágenes. Desde luego, estas podrían generarse en una computadora. Pero, ¿cuál sería el objetivo de hacer algo así? Observe con cuidado los ojos de este ser, que parecen tener brillo, y repetidamente cierra sus párpados.
I saw 2 bright flashes of light. At the end of the last flash of light, about 5 minutes or so after that, I decided to look out, and sure enough, I saw this head pop down. It's like, yes, I got him. I was going to take the videotape to the police. Well, when I looked out of the window, I saw this small figure running toward the backyard, and I thought it was a kid. Except for the fact the way it ran was completely different than the normal human being would run. It was very fast, and it didn't bob like, you know, it just was very kind of smooth, really bizarre.
En otra ocasión, Stan Romanek se encontraba dormido cuando sintió que un pequeño ser pasaba muy cerca de él. Pensó que era uno de sus hijos, pero le extrañó porque no tenía ropa. Él decidió seguir a lo que pensaba era un niño, uno de sus hijos. Entonces se dio cuenta que era algo distinto. Rápidamente corrió por la cámara y alcanzó a captar algunas imágenes, unos segundos, de un ser que se asoma detrás del refrigerador en su cocina.
It's hard for me to understand really what's going on here, but it's very dear to my heart.
Ante toda esta información, todos los archivos, los avistamientos, las ecuaciones y sus mensajes incluidos, las abducciones y el dolor causado a Stan, pero también la curación, ¿es verídica esta historia? ¿Es legítimo este caso? ¿Es la historia de contacto extraterrestre más fascinante de todos los tiempos? Stan Romanek es un hombre que tiene valor, que tiene coraje, que ha decidido continuar con esta historia hasta el final, hasta perder la vida o hasta llegar a una conclusión. y lo hace determinado, lo hace convencido de que está jugando un papel importante para la humanidad. La posibilidad de que florezca aquí el fruto venido desde las profundidades del cosmos.
Bueno, aquí le quiero presentar experiencias personales del equipo de Tercer Milenio alrededor de Stan Romanek. Siempre que estamos cerca de él, que hay una entrevista, pasan cosas realmente muy extrañas, que las hemos visto personalmente. Nadie nos ha contado sobre esto. De tal forma que aquí ya en Tercer Milenio le llamamos el efecto Romanek. Es verdadero. Aquí le presento estos detalles, la investigación con Alberto García.
Aquí le presentamos este cúmulo de evidencias en torno al caso de Stan Romanek, una serie de fallas técnicas que este equipo de investigación ha experimentado cuando de manera directa o indirecta hablamos de este personaje.
Bueno, la primera vez que fuimos a Loveland, en Colorado, a casa de Stan Romanek, su esposa Lisa nos advirtió que ahí pasaban cosas muy raras. Sin embargo, pues yo soy un poco escéptico de estas cuestiones y pues no lo creí. Me comentó que a veces se abría el agua sola y que pasaban cosas extrañas, que una vez estaban con unos amigos, entraron a la casa y cuando salieron todos los muebles estaban pues prácticamente en el techo y cosas realmente inexplicables, ¿no? Me tocó ver a Guillermo muy espantado porque se le había prendido el automóvil solo.
Estábamos en la casa de Stan Romanek, eran como las 11 de la noche, habíamos trabajado todo el día con él, yo salía un momento de relajamiento, fumar un cigarro. La calle estaba totalmente sola, oscura, y estaba la camioneta que habíamos rentado para viajar de Denver a Loveland, que está como a 150 millas. Saqué los cigarros del coche, cerré el coche. Ya cuando me dirigí a la casa de Romanek, al ir a entrar en la puerta, escuché claramente que el coche se encendía, que el motor arrancaba. Entonces regresé a la camioneta y efectivamente el coche estaba andando. ¿Te imaginas la impresión para alguien que se baja del coche y se arranca el coche? Y luego una de las ventanas se bajó, las ventanas eléctricas. Hasta la fecha me sigo acordando de eso y se me enchina el cuero.
Una más al entrevistar a Stan Romanek en una transmisión especial de tercermilenio.tv.
Bueno, tenemos algunos problemas técnicos, desafortunadamente, pero pues... no sé qué podamos hacer para ver estas imágenes. No, tenemos problemas. We have problems to see the images that we want to present from you. Le quiero decir algo. Hace unos minutos estuvo aquí el señor Stan Romanek. Como vio, tuvimos muchos problemas para poder presentar imágenes. Simplemente no teníamos regreso de México. Y cuando él se retiraba nos dijo, eso pasa siempre donde yo voy, y créalo o no, una vez que él se retiró de aquí, todo empezó a funcionar perfectamente. De manera sorpresiva, aquí está el señor Guillermo Figueroa, el señor Alberto García, y podrán confirmar lo que le estoy diciendo, verdaderamente sorprendidos porque no funcionaba nada. Y tal y como dijo el señor Romanek, donde yo voy siempre hay problemas, no sé qué pasa conmigo, y efectivamente él se retira y todo empezó a funcionar bien.
Una grabación que recibimos por parte de Stan Romanek y causaría fallas en 3 computadoras.
Y nos entregaron esta grabación, ¿no?, importante que nos mandó Jaime, y pues la descargué en la computadora, y al momento de empezar a trabajar en ella, en una laptop, de repente, o sea, a la hora de dejar de teclear, se iba el programa desaparecía. Me marcó un error fatal, tal como lo tenemos en la pantalla. Así salió la máquina, ¿no? Y dije, ¿qué rayos? Pues no sé, son cosas que no se puede explicar uno, a menos que utilicemos ya el término del efecto Romanek, ¿no?
De tal manera, pues, que sí creo que se trata de un caso extraño y creo que todos esos elementos que lo rodean, que si bien no constituyen evidencias en sí mismas, sí considero que no son explicables, que no tienen razón de haber ocurrido y que entonces tenemos que entender que detrás o alrededor de la personalidad de Stan Romanek ocurre algo muy extraño, algo que por ahora es incomprensible para los seres humanos. Uno de los aspectos que en lo personal más me impresiona de este caso son las ecuaciones que Stan Romanek escribió en medio de una regresión hipnótica o bien despertaba en medio de la noche y se podía escribir sin luz. Extraordinarias. Además, la información está ahí, es real. No pudo haber sido inventada por un disléxico, como lo es Stan Romanek. Aquí le presento los detalles con Fernando Correa.
One guy started that. That's not the case. I can guarantee you it's not the end of the world. I remembered from my previous experience that I had all these symbols in my head. Now, what's really important to understand is I'm severely dyslexic.
Stan Romanek, de 47 años de edad, toda su vida ha padecido dislexia. Por problemas de aprendizaje de las matemáticas, nunca concluyó la secundaria. No obstante, afirma que ha tenido más de 100 experiencias con seres extraterrestres, vividas desde diciembre del 2000, que lo han llevado a escribir complejas fórmulas de astrofísica y matemáticas elevadas que él mismo no comprende por completo. Ecuaciones extraordinarias que los extraterrestres le habrían enseñado a Romanek. Fórmulas que escribió durante y después de las terapias de regresión hipnótica realizadas con la psicoanalista Deborah Lindemann desde julio del 2000.
Ella pone imágenes en mi cabeza.
Fórmulas muy elevadas pero coherentes que describen cómo los alienígenas habrían realizado su viaje desde la constelación de Orión, de la estrella Mintaka a 900 años luz hasta nuestro sistema solar, por medio de un atajo cósmico a través de los agujeros de gusano. Los expertos que han analizado las fórmulas expresan sorprendidos que se trata de ecuaciones para desarrollar tecnología de punta en cuanto a viajes espaciales. Habla Jack Kasher, profesor emérito de Física y Astronomía de la Universidad de Nebraska.
These are not just letters that are written on a piece of paper. Stan wrote them down. He really didn't know what they meant, but they do mean something. That first page might be their way of telling us how they generate and bend gravity so that they can travel through space, all those symbols that were there. The second page might be a clue somehow to, at least the top lines there deal with quantum gravity, and possibly we need quantum gravity for space travel. But how that all comes out is not clear to me from these pages, but those are genuine terms defined accurately, and the equations mean something, whatever it is. They're not just letters on a sheet. So there's something there that somebody's trying to tell us through putting it into Stan's head.
Stan Romanek ha presentado sus ecuaciones y lo que los extraterrestres le han comunicado en todo el mundo. Recientemente se presentó en el Congreso Mundial OVNI del 2010 en Nevada, donde P1Maussan lo entrevistó.
Are they using you to give us information?
I think I feel that I have an obligation to get this information out. Because if it means something, if it can help humanity.
Romanek también dibujó un diagrama de una alineación de planetas en la que aparece un 10º mundo que llama Genia o el planeta X. Una alineación del futuro que acontecerá durante el equinoccio de otoño en septiembre del 2012.
Maybe they're sick of what's going on here and that they really want contact to happen. That's my feeling. And I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to fight to get people to understand that we're not alone. And eventually when contact does happen, I hope I'm right there when it happens.
Estas ecuaciones que han demostrado su validez científica en ocasiones, como ya apuntábamos, Romanek las escribía a la mitad de la noche, despertaba en un cuarto oscuro y las escribía. Es decir, entraba en un trance hipnótico. ¿Es esto posible? ¿Es científicamente aceptado? ¿Cuál es la realidad del trance hipnótico al que posteriormente se sujetaría Romanek para responder nuestras preguntas? Veamos entonces técnicamente, científicamente, lo que es un trance hipnótico. Marilu Carrillo.
¿Es posible que entidades y energías del universo se transfieran a un cuerpo humano en estado de trance hipnótico? Más aún, ¿pueden estas energías, una vez apoderadas del cuerpo, emitir mensajes?
Hopefully, I'm hoping some good information came forward. Did they answer whatever questions you had?
El uso clínico y científico de la hipnosis determina el fenómeno de trance hipnótico como verídico, es decir, un estado temporal de inconsciencia situado entre vigilia y sueño. Mientras el cuerpo permanece en letargo, se convierte en vehículo disponible hacia donde el subconsciente dirija o sea dirigido. Un recuerdo, un estadio o incluso un contacto. En entrevista vía Skype y con la investigadora Kim Trotman, hipnoterapeuta certificada y especializada en regresión de vidas pasadas, comenta sobre el estado de trance y la experiencia.
It basically just puts you in a different brainwave, an alpha brainwave, and that allows you to kind of access your more right side of your brain and the intuitive portion, and allows you to just access information that your left side of your brain suppresses.
La línea que divide el fenómeno de lo científico y lo esotérico es muy delgada. Y más aún la experiencia de quien logra el trance. Este puede ser inducido por investigadores reconocidos o autoprovocado por personas hipersensibles como una medium. Es el hipnoterapeuta Federico Barra quien habla sobre lo que experimenta una medium y la canalización de la energía.
La medium se pone en un estado de trance, entonces su parte inconsciente domina todo su cuerpo, lo que hace que se pueda conectar con la conciencia más grande y entonces tener acceso a otras mentes.
Kind of accessing energies that aren't associated to a body. You know, they're someone that's passed over, or maybe some being that's never taken physical form, but you're not allowing them to take your body. You're just kind of understanding their information the same way we all read each other pretty much, you know.
El consciente utiliza un 12% del volumen físico del cerebro y el inconsciente el 88% restante. La función del trance hipnótico es a nivel alfa, es decir, acceder a ese 88% del inconsciente,
donde se alojan las emociones, los recuerdos, las memorias, los valores, las creencias, es decir, todo lo que realmente nos rige está en la parte inconsciente. Lo importante es desmitificar la hipnosis. La hipnosis es un fenómeno que todas las personas lo vivimos.
El trance hipnótico ha estado vinculado al ser humano a lo largo de su evolución natural. Las referencias históricas vinculan al antiguo Egipto. Fue hasta principios de los 80s cuando la hipnosis ericksoniana comenzó a repuntar. Recordar que en el proceso de trance el cuerpo se encuentra disponible y el subconsciente en un estado de hipersugestión. La experiencia dependerá de la conexión que tenga el individuo con el universo.
Nos han enseñado hasta no ver, no creer. Y ha funcionado, pero tiene ciertas limitaciones. Aquí es diferente. Cuando llegas aquí es hasta no creer, no ver. En el momento que te quitas la limitación de la parte consciente, entonces se abre un mundo.
Necessarily the body, you know, your body is one thing, your soul is something else. It's, you know, goes along the lines of possession, or people that think they're having revelations from God, or, you know, you know, the idea of sort of moving over and letting information come through you.
Con tales elementos, por lo ocurrido en febrero del 2013 con Stan Romanek, podría significar el primer intento de comunicación en la historia entre el ser humano y una entidad del universo.
They had three major policies that were going to be followed. First, they were to see to it that humans would be made to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist. Because see, up to that time, you could walk down a street of Paris and you would have signs that would say, well, you have a soothsayer or, you know, or a fortune teller of some type, and if you want to put a curse on someone, you could go and see this other old lady over there, you know, the old witch, that's the way it goes. But now it had to change. Lucifer says, we have to make sure that people, humans, get to believe that Satan and his angels do not really exist.
You know, Roger, that's interesting because a recent research study report that I read indicated that in a national survey, I believe it's over 75% of people do not really believe in a real tangible devil. But there is one.
Oh, yeah. Now, the next thing, the three parts policy that they had adopted there, the second one was to find a way of being able to get total control of people's minds. And that would be done by taking hypnotism out of the realm of the occult and introduce it as a new science for the benefit of mankind. But this was their strategy. Now, what this would do for the thing is this, that it would create in the minds of the general public, solidly set in the mind of the general public, an unwavering trust in that great deception. In other words, people could, you know, they would believe it. This person was hypnotized, was regressing time to, you know, former lives, and did this and did that, and no deception. Maybe Alexander the Great, we'll say, you know, and some of his generals and people like that. And the person, after the session is over, you know, comes out of hypnotism, and he or she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Rafael Pacheco Pérez, un joven que practicaba la aviación, el 21 de junio de 1976 despegó de la Ciudad de México, desapareció de los radares, fue localizado algunas horas después volando sobre el Océano Pacífico. Al regresar a Acapulco se descubrió que se había grabado una conversación. En ella, un supuesto ser extraterrestre daba un mensaje, lo que podría haber sido un trance hipnótico. Aquí le presento este ejemplo para entender mejor lo que ocurrió con Stan Romanek, la investigación y todos los detalles.
La mañana del 21 de junio de 1976 despegó de la Ciudad de México la avioneta Cessna 150 con matrícula XBZOX que llevaba como piloto a Rafael Pacheco Pérez, estudiante número 82 de la Escuela de Aviación México, quien minutos después perdería la conciencia y viviría una situación extraordinaria. Esa mañana la práctica era con rumbo a Chimalhuacán en el Estado de México y el tiempo era nublado y con bruma. A las 8:45 se perdió todo contacto con Pacheco Pérez y fue hasta las 10:30 horas cuando la avioneta hizo contacto con Torre de Acapulco. Ahí se encontraban los controladores Jorge Villagrán y Carlos de Crechi, quienes notaron un tono extraño en la forma de hablar del piloto, quien insistentemente solicitaba le fuera asignada una frecuencia para dar un mensaje. Se le designó la 123.45 y es a partir de este instante que un supuesto extraterrestre comenzó a hablar y dijo que Pacheco, a quien lo escuchamos con una voz robotizada, se encontraba bajo estado hipnótico, es decir, que no controlaba a voluntad su cuerpo y su pensamiento, sino que era manipulado.
El piloto en estado hipnótico a través de él mismo está transmitiendo este mensaje. Usted está haciendo la distancia a través del piloto, ¿correcto? Es correcto. Él únicamente está hablando porque así se le ordena. Esta es su voz. Él está hablando, pero no lo hace por su voluntad. Lo estamos utilizando a él como si utilizáramos un micrófono.
En esa grabación dijeron que ellos son de este mismo universo. Así también que son muy parecidos a nosotros. una grabación que fue realizada por Antonio Aguilar, operador de salas móviles del aeropuerto de Acapulco.
El controlador aéreo, Carlos de Crechi, que estaba en ese momento en la torre de control, le hace preguntas al supuesto extraterrestre en español, en alemán y en inglés, y todo lo responde perfectamente en el idioma que se le hace la pregunta.
Al aterrizar, a Pacheco Pérez se le practicaron exámenes médicos en presencia de las autoridades aeronáuticas, quienes concluyeron que se encontraba clínicamente sano.
Las autoridades aeronáuticas se dan cuenta de que está en perfectas condiciones, se revisa la avioneta y lo que llama la atención es que prácticamente pues, ha consumido pues, una cantidad mínima de combustible.
Tanto las autoridades del aeropuerto de Acapulco así como de la Escuela de Aviación México nunca pudieron dar una respuesta satisfactoria sobre este caso, ya que no se explicaban cómo había llegado hasta allá si no tenía el combustible suficiente, no llevaba carta de navegación ni plan de vuelo. Cabe mencionar que Pacheco Pérez, en aquel momento, solo tenía 53 horas de vuelo, es decir, solo conocía lo básico.
Prácticamente el segundo caso más importante en lo que se refiere al encuentro de un ovni con un avión, en este caso de matrícula mexicana.
Roger, when I was a teenager back in the 1970s, I remember a song that came out talking about the age of Aquarius. And since then, we've seen the development of the New Age, and I wondered if back when you were involved in spirit worship, if they talked about New Age at all.
Oh yes, it was a big thing that was coming up. One of the major deceptions of the last days. And the priest told us, we talked quite a while, and then he said, could I have a little bit more? You were telling me I want to do something very fascinating. He says the grand plan, the master's grand plan for harvesting the nations, for harvesting the multitudes of the earth into his cause, just before the close of the great controversy between the forces of good and evil. So we continued, after we expressed ourselves that we're deeply interested to know more about the activities of spirits. And he said it's going to be done in a unique manner. This grand plan is going to take people are going to eat the stuff. Because he says spirits, demon spirits, will declare themselves to be inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies that are coming to warn the inhabitants of planet Earth of the impending destruction of the planet, unless something seriously proper is done to avoid it. He went on explaining about the fact that the spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause it to enter into a higher state of existence.
El 6 de marzo de 2013, Mark Leone recibió una llamada que quedó grabada en su teléfono. En esta llamada, una voz mecánica, supuestamente de un ser extraterrestre, convocaba a una reunión donde deberían ser citados 20 personas, 20 personajes. Nosotros fuimos también invitados. Supuestamente en esta reunión, Romanek respondería preguntas que serían realizadas y respondidas por un ser extraterrestre. Esto suena muy difícil de creer. Sin embargo, fuimos hasta el lugar, hasta un lugar secreto en Loveland, Colorado, y entonces encontramos esta extraordinaria situación. Desde luego, un trance hipnótico es subjetivo. ¿Es verdadero? ¿No lo es? Usted decide. Veamos la primera parte de esta investigación. El 10 de marzo de 2013, Mark Leone, amigo de Stan Romanek, recibió un extraño mensaje en su teléfono, el cual quedó grabado. Una voz mecánica generada por computadora convocaba a una reunión donde Stan Romanek debería someterse a un trance hipnótico, en el cual un supuesto ser dimensional hablaría a través de Stan Romanek.
These people are all connected in various ways and are invited for a reason. It is important this happens sooner than later. The list is as follows: Annette Latimer, Stanislav Ojak, Claude Swanson, Foster Gamble, yourself, Mark Olson, Bruce Persson, Mark Cuthbert, Victoria Roll Bright, Heidi Sudani, Glenn Martin, Jaime Mouzon, Rachel Morrison, John Sample, Jack Ross, Mike O'Brien, Sean Kidlahan, Rick Nelson. Now, from what you call the lab, please invite the one called Wayne, Bill, Ken, and Phil.
Viajamos hasta Loveland, en Colorado, donde las personas convocadas nos reunimos para escuchar la comunicación del supuesto ser extraterrestre.
Stan has an opportunity not only to communicate with the ETs, but also to find out what information they might provide us. And then it sounds as if there are so many people who've been invited that they may have questions for the ETs through Stan. So we hope to have a lot of information exchanged.
What is exactly what you are going to do?
I'll be helping Stan relax deeply and go into hypnosis. He can do it himself, but it helps to have some guidance. So I provide him with the opportunity not only to relax deeply, but to prepare himself for that communication.
How reliable is the information that we are going to receive today?
It's difficult to know for individuals. Some individuals feel like the information is very meaningful to them. Other people feel like the information is general, not only for them specifically, but for humanity in general. I suppose the appropriate logical scientific expectation would be what my parents used to tell me when we were little kids: we'll see. We'll see if this turns out.
Many people believe in these kind of events, other people don't. What would you say to them?
I give a general view about information. Information is to be received and evaluated and then perhaps later confirmed. I remember one time a Canadian reporter asked me, he said, "What do you say to skeptics, Leo?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I say to skeptics. But I said, if they're debunkers, I don't really want to talk to them. They're not much fun. But to a person who's truly skeptical about information from extraterrestrials or about flying saucers, I say, read 1,000 reports, talk to 100 people, have your own encounter. Now we can talk. Now we have something to talk about."
When I do this, I check out. It's like I fall asleep. Something else happens. And this started with Leo quite a while ago, and it just seems to be something we do now. So, you know, it's important. They set this up. I didn't. They set this up. In fact, I just learned about it probably about 4 days ago, 5 days ago. Everybody else knew about it before I did, so, you know.
You're not comfortable with?
I'm uneasy with it because, you know, there's a lot of... People already make fun of people like me who have had experiences. This just adds, you know, fuel to the fire. You know, people don't believe, you know, in UFOs, and especially, you know, even I have a hard time with this, but it is what it is. I mean, this is the real thing, and I can't change it, so I just try to use it to get messages to people, I guess.
Are you nervous?
I am. I mean...
Minutos después, Stan Romanek entraría en un trance hipnótico, conocido como channeling en inglés, donde respondería a las preguntas de los que habíamos sido llamados a esta reunión. El caso de Stan Romanek sin duda es uno de los más extraordinarios que nos ha tocado investigar. Un caso que se encuentra repleto de evidencias, imágenes incluso de seres extraterrestres, luces que vuelan en el interior de un hogar, videos de objetos voladores no identificados que siguen al testigo en su automóvil y que son presenciados por un sinnúmero de personas. Realmente el caso de Stan Romanek es, sin duda, uno de los mejores documentados con evidencias extraordinarias. Por eso hemos llegado aquí hasta Loveland, en Colorado. Por eso hemos venido a este lugar cuando se nos anunció que habríamos sido convocados a estar en una sesión donde en unos minutos más se le preguntarán a Stan Romanek diferentes preguntas. Él supuestamente estará personificando a un ser extraterrestre en un estado de trance. ¿Es esto posible? Suena muy difícil de creer. Sin embargo, ante los antecedentes del caso, hemos llegado hasta este sitio para confirmar o no
lo que aquí se habrá de presentar. Sin duda alguna es muy interesante en cualquier sentido. Si es que seremos testigos de un evento que nunca antes había ocurrido, al menos de la forma que se ha presentado este. En la sesión donde Stan Romanek entraría en trance hipnótico, hicimos las preguntas que el público de México había realizado a Stan Romanek a través de una convocatoria de tercermilenio.tv.
We allowed you to be here because when things happen, and they will happen rapidly, it will start in Mexico. Things will start in Mexico. It is not by chance that Mexico has more. It is chosen. They are more accepting than most. They are less to judge than most. It will be a catalyst there. That is why you are here. Do you understand?
I do. The activity is very intense right now.
Yes, and it will be more so. Be prepared. And your people must strive to get it to the world.
Thank you. I have these questions. Can I make them?
Yes.
Which is the meaning of life?
It is to the individual. What you ask is, why are humans here? Humans are of God. Humans are God. The oneness God. You call God. Humans cannot perceive of God, the oneness. Everything is connected. Humans are a part of that to experience this three-dimensional space.
Hello.
And to you, good day.
Good day. My question is about...
Speak up so that all may hear what you have to share. Be bold.
It's about God.
God, yes, all that is.
I'm a little bit confused because from what I could understand, it's an energy who doesn't die.
It is all that is.
And here on Earth...
It is all that is. There is nothing outside of creation. What you call God is all that is. It is you. It is the chair. It is the room. It is the sky. It is the planet. It is the stars. It is everything. Everything is made of God because there's nothing else to make anything from. So all of you, all of us, everything is what you call God experiencing itself as everything. This is the second law. The one is the all. The all are the one.
The oneness has expanded out to experience. Humans are part of that. Humans do not understand. They are more a part of that than most of life that is out there. Humans do not understand. They have a direct connect to source. They do not understand that what they believe they can manifest. Starseed understands this. We have talked about this. We'll talk about it again for you. Humans are here to raise up this third dimensional or third density vibration to experience for the oneness. Humans are of God. Humans must understand this. They must not be complacent. That is why they have forgotten. So they are not complacent. Do you understand?
I do. Do you believe in God?
Not the same way you do, but yes. God, that is a term humans use. We believe in the words, starseed words, God, consciousness. Yes.
People in Mexico ask, why so much mystery?
Come on, work.
One poll called the Roper poll, and the results were extrapolated and sent to over 150,000 American GPs, medical practitioners, that basically said it's almost at epidemic proportions. They estimate that up to 4 million Americans may have had an alien abduction experience, as they believe. And then you've really got to wonder, why is the nature of it so deceptive? You know, if they're really here to help us, as some of these contacts claim, you know, why do they go around acting deceptively? Why do they stealthily abduct people in the middle of the night? And, you know, when I say it was confronting, there was some subject matter that was particularly disturbing. You know, people claim they've been taken onto a spaceship and probed in all parts of their bodies. There are sexual encounters. There seems to be some sort of almost ritual abuse that's going on. So you've got to ask, why would advanced, you know, evolved creatures, you know, kidnap people in the middle of the night? and do these horrible things to them, and yet say, you know, we're here to help you evolve. And it's interesting that, you know, we'd like to apply, if you like, a scientific tag to it. But quite simply, it seems that these creatures claim that they fly millions of light years across the universe to basically deny the Bible, Christianity, and teach us almost New Age beliefs. Why would advanced extraterrestrials come just to teach us religious messages? It seems to me, and again the researchers will show you, that the messages being received are deceptive, and will tell you things like, well, you know, we've come from Venus or Mars in the 60s, that was the messages. Well, we now know that's impossible. Now they say they come from Sirius or Orion or Zeta Reticuli or somewhere far off, where we can't test those claims. And that's the problem. And some of the stories they've told us, like that, we know to be demonstrably not true. And if someone comes to you, Chris, and tells you a story and does all these things and says, I'm here to help you, but then does brutal things to you and then lies to you, then I don't think trust is a good place.
In his book, Flying Saucer Pilgrimage, Bryant Reeves summarizes his findings in this statement. From our analysis, the teachings of the space beings appear to support many of the principles taught in Oriental philosophy by seers of the Far East. UFO researcher John Weldon then offers this question. How credible is it to think that literally thousands of genuine extraterrestrials would fly millions of light years simply to teach New Age philosophy, deny Christianity, and support the occult? And why would the entities actually possess and inhabit people just like demons do if they were really advanced extraterrestrials? Bud Hopkins has written several books on UFOs, including Missing Time and Intruders. He is one of the foremost experts on abduction cases, otherwise known as close encounters of the fourth kind.
And now we've come to the conclusion that abduction, of their involvement with human beings, that this is the center of the entire UFO phenomenon, and that actually when people have UFO sightings, it's very possible that what they're seeing is something on its way to or from an abduction of somebody. They're not just flying around up there, they are interested very profoundly in human beings.
Whitley Strieber claims to have been abducted by alien beings on more than one occasion, and wrote of his experiences in his best-selling book, Communion.
I've had, since I wrote Communion, over 55,000 letters from people around the world who've had this similar things that think they have happened to them, and we still get about 200 a week.
The Intruders Foundation and the Fund for UFO Research show that 1 out of every 50 American adults, 3.7 million people, indicate that they may have had an abduction experience with an unidentified flying object.
I think one of the most scariest things was when the UFO followed him from work, and he noticed it going above his car.
And I saw this object hovering above where my apartment complex was, and it was, you know, plain as day. Ran upstairs, got my friend and my sister. We came back out and got my video camera and took a little bit of video of it. And then that night, I was abducted. They took me against my will. My first experience was almost polite, though it wasn't. And I've had other experiences that were absolutely terrifying. So, you know, there's a mix.
Close encounters of the fourth kind are by far the most frightening. Those who claim to have been abducted by aliens and taken against their will. Perhaps the most famous case was that of Betty and Barney Hill. Their story began on the night of September 19, 1961, as they were returning to their New Hampshire home from a vacation in Canada. They saw a distant point of light, which seemed to move erratically. As it moved closer, it became more intense. Betty Hill remembers.
This craft left the top of the mountain, came out of the highway, and stopped in midair. Barney took the binoculars and started out of the car in an attempt to identify the craft. And as he did this, he saw a group of figures standing in the windows looking down at him. One was saying to him, "Don't be afraid. Keep looking, stay there. Don't be afraid. No harm's going to come to you, but stay there." And the craft started to descend. And Barney ran back to the car, saying we had to get out of there, they were going to capture us. and we took off speeding down the highway.
They made it home without further incident, but in the days and months that followed, they experienced nightmares, flashbacks, and extreme anxiety. They were also unable to account for more than 2 hours between the time they first encountered the UFO and the time they reached home. Where had the missing time gone? What had happened? They sought out a psychiatrist, and through hypnosis, Betty and Barney Hill narrated a tale much stranger than the one that had been lodged in their conscious minds, being able to offer a detailed description of her alien abductors.
They were all shot. The leader, I would say, was my height, or just a little taller than I am, and I'm 5 foot, with a bald, no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, and no earlobes, no ear, we could say. Very large eyes, very small, flat nose, thin foot for mouth.
Betty Hill said that they were most interested in human sexuality and that they communicated through a form of telepathy that sounded like a voice loud and clear inside their heads.
John Keel is a world-renowned expert with unidentified flying objects and has written numerous books and articles on the subject. A self-described agnostic, he made this statement: "Thousands of books have been written on the subject of demonology, which is the ancient and scholarly study on monsters and demons. The manifestations and occurrences described in this literature are identical to the UFO phenomena. Victims from demonic possession suffered from the same medical and emotional symptoms as the UFO contactees."
At this point, I today do not know what it was in fact that we saw, but when we got back to the hotel, the motel that night, Paul said that he, about a half hour, 45 minutes, something like that, after he fell asleep, he woke up totally awake, and something picked him up, actually picked him up and set him up in bed, involuntarily. And the moment he sat up, a light came on over his head like a little dim night light. And he looked up to see an alien's face with the typical aliens with the bubble eyes, but it was glowing, and you could see through it. You could see the ceiling through it, as if it were a hologram of some kind. And it was glowing, looking at him, and he said it slid across the ceiling, went across the ceiling, hit the wall, and came down to where it was even with him sitting in bed. It went through the wall and disappeared. But Ivy, in my room, was laying so that she could see the door, and she said she saw the glowing on the wall, but she couldn't tell what the light was because it wasn't very bright. And she said, but when she opened her eyes to see the glowing of the light in Paul's room, which was the face on the wall, a little red, tiny little red dot of light came through Paul's room and came in and hovered over her.
medium said, we have a very special surprise tonight for you people. A spirit will manifest itself openly here in a few minutes, and it's like a big gust of wind hit the building and right through the wall, and that translucent being seemed to come right out of the wall.
How did you feel right at that moment?
It's almost like my heart stopped a little bit. You know, very weird feeling. It was a lady in a beautiful evening gown, swirling. And she said to Mary, my dear sister, you are so wonderful to have asked for me. And Mary fainted and fell right off her chair on the floor. And a couple of guys jumped up and picked her up, and spirit gone. And that was the beginning of it.
That's how you got into it?
Yeah, that's the way I got into it. After a while, you see, there's something interesting about the human mind. You can adjust an awful lot of stuff. You can adjust to a lot of things that would terrify you to begin with. After a while, they become common and ordinary.
So you mean contact with the supernatural can become commonplace and ordinary and doesn't bother anybody?
Yeah.
In other words, the more that you do it, you're not uncomfortable.
That's
it's
right.
Just not.
People believe that the dead have entered into a higher state of existence than they had when they were alive. Also that they are in a position and have the capacity to help the living here on earth. So who are they talking to? He says, the friendly demon spirits that have always found over the centuries great delight in impersonating apparitions, departed loved ones, and persons of great renown. He said the supposed spirits of the dead that you're talking with are demon spirits. They're fallen angels. They're beautiful beings.
Just set it out, just like
that. Oh,
yeah.
It didn't make you uneasy when he said they were...
Well, you know, it shocked you a little bit, you know. Something that you first hear mentioned to you.
The people on board the ship usually are described as looking like the alien that I just showed you. They're very short, 3 to 4 feet tall, big heads, huge eyes, no genitals, vestigial mouth and nose and ears, in other words, not very much of those in evidence, and they stink. They smell like sulfur. Interesting smell.
The Amityville Horror was based on a factual account of what happened to a family in Amityville, New York. An irritating and nauseating odor seemed to accompany the presence of the ghost or spirit entity that entered there from time to time.
Terry claims that he then ventured back outside to take more photos.
I took a series of 3 pictures of an upstairs window.
But suddenly, he feels that he is no longer alone.
I felt this presence come over me, and the smell was like sulfur and roses. Real strong smell.
When Terry develops the film from his still camera, he's shocked by what he sees. 3 consecutive pictures of what appears to be a woman glowing in a pink light, floating in the 2nd-story window.
Dr. Pierre Guérin, an eminent scientist associated with the French National Council for Scientific Research, concludes that UFO behavior is more akin to magic than to physics as we know it, and that modern UFOnauts and the demons of past days are probably identical. The word demon in Greek comes from the root meaning knowledge or intelligence, implying that demons have access to knowledge and information denied to ordinary mortals.
After what happened to me, the communion experiences, I decided that that might be a good idea to accept the idea of the devil just in case that's what I saw. If you look closely at the life of the world, you see the workings of evil in the world. There seems to be a sort of machinery behind it that is far beyond just the accident of human life.
You can literally hypnotize a person, tell them that there's a cat in their lap. They will see it, they will hear it, purr, they will pet it and feel it. It's not physically there. You tell the cat to scratch them, and bring them out of it. There are scratch marks on their cheek. A non-physical object under the right conditions can leave physical evidence. I think it's demonic. It's a spiritual power of some kind for which there is no physical explanation. You can't explain it with the laws of chemistry and physics as we know it.
In summary, demons do exist and they are attempting to destroy what God has established. They have been doing this throughout the history of man, and are the explanation for the evil in this world. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party are evidence of their presence. Demons are as different as people. There are some who actually desire to help us, desperate for human interaction. Some demons are terrified of other fierce demons. Their greatest deception is to make you think they don't exist. You must remember they have a higher knowledge than man. Today, there are a host of demons disguising themselves as alien grays from another planet. This is directly related to the UFO phenomenon and alien abductions. They are in the process of their last scheme to deceive the world, causing man to dismiss God as a myth, denying the return of Christ.
That was his power. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
Do not be deceived. These aliens are leading people astray. Christ is returning for those who know him. And if you know him, you will recognize his return. This world will eventually be destroyed,